Hi everyone, this is Gaston from Markman Advisors with this week's Markman Minute, where we take a look at patent litigation situations of interest to investors, as well as taking a broader look at the intersection between financial markets, companies that are valuable based on their intellectual property, and general patent issues as they arise. So for this week's discussion, I wanted to talk about some of the steps that we see one of the big giants in the patent space, and that's a company that we all know, Google, has taken recently to really try to continue to shape the narrative around patent valuation and enforcement in this country. So we all know that Google is a big player in the patent space. They have a large portfolio of their own. They've been involved in some of the largest patent acquisitions in the past, in the multiple billions of dollars, as in their acquisition of the Motorola patent portfolio a few years back. And they're also involved in the system from a lobbying perspective. The current commissioner of the Patent Office is a former Google employee, and as well are also a frequent player in patent litigation in the court system. Google is a very big target for non-practicing entities, and has a very robust docket at any one time of patent cases around the country, where people are trying to get Google to license their patents and provide some money in exchange for seeing a case dismissed, or trying to take Google to trial and see if they could win some money from a jury verdict. So Google's a big player. Google may be the overarching player in the entire patent ecosystem right now. So whenever Google does something, it's of interest not only to investors in Google, but more to everybody that's focused on the intellectual property space. And that includes investors in companies that are impacted by patents and patent litigation. So what has Google done over the last couple of months? The first thing they did a few months ago, to a fair amount of fanfare, was they announced a patent purchase program. And what they put out there was a shortened period, what they called a pilot project, where they invited people to submit their patents to Google and enter into effectively a binding pre-sale type of transaction. So you would designate a patent at a time and show it to Google. You would indicate to Google at the time you submitted it what you wanted for it, and there was different values that were on the screen that were available on the submission form. It was $10,000, $25,000 and up. And then there was an other tab for those people that think they have the $1 million patents. And Google said that we'll review these patents over the course of a month, and if we see something we like, we'll buy it from you at the agreed upon price. And so that program launched, and at this point we don't really know. Google hasn't released the data from the program, but we can only imagine that they got a good response, and it's going to be very interesting to see just how well the program did. In terms of what the value of the program was to Google, and the stated goal was to help take patents off the market in order to reduce the supply of these types of patents to non-practicing entities that would later turn around and potentially sue Google. So right now the patent market is a little bit depressed. Patent values have gone down in light of a lot of the legal developments that we've seen over the past couple of years. So Google took an opportunity to try to buy low and take some of these dangerous patents off the market. Another thing that Google's done recently, in addition to this patent purchase program, has been to make their patent searching functionality that's available through Google much more robust. And here again, the goal is to help companies that are either been sued for patent infringement or are thinking about getting patents of their own, really try to determine from a layman's perspective whether or not there's prior art out there or other patents or ideas that have been that already disclose the idea. In which case, it probably wouldn't make sense to spend the money to file the patent application. Or if you're a defendant in a lawsuit, Google is basically offering you a free hand in terms of identifying prior art that you could use as a defense. Now, as a patent litigator myself, my suggestion would be not to rely on Google and to check with counsel before making any decisions about patentability or whether a piece of prior art is something that would be good for a defense purpose in a litigation. But again, this is yet another step where Google is trying to make the information that could be helpful to people in the patent marketplace more freely available. And for that's generally a good thing. They're aggregating information from patent offices and other news sources and making it easier for people to determine whether or not there's a prior patent out there. So that's another step that Google's taken. One thing that's going to be interesting to see is whether or not that has a bit of a deterrent effect on smaller inventors actually, who may go to Google search and see variations of their idea present, and if they haven't checked with counsel, they may not realize that they may still have something patentable within their general idea. Again, that's a little bit of speculation, but whenever you make it easy for people to see that other people have come up with a similar idea before, that does have the danger of having a deterrent effect and may lead to less patents being filed. Now, Google is doing yet more in terms of making the patent marketplace a little bit more transparent and more in line with their stated goals, which is to decrease the economic impact of non-practicing entities suing companies like Google. And in the final step, and this is something that was announced even more recently, they've announced that they're going to partner with 50 startups and actually give those startups patents, actual patents that are in Google's portfolio. They're also going to open up lift their skirt a little bit and show these companies that are selected other patents in the general business area that the startup is operating in, with the ability that if they see something in Google's portfolio that they like, they could enter into a negotiation with Google to buy it. No obligations on either side on that front. And then the third thing that they're offering these startup companies that are selected is the ability to join what they call the LOT network, which is a kind of joint licensing network where companies of all sizes could kind of pool patents, use those patents in cross-licensing situations, and generally try to band together to avoid the ill effects of non-practicing entity litigation. So really a nice little Chinese menu of benefits for patent owners, for startup companies that Google has offered, and again, all in the hopes of decreasing the leverage of non-practicing entities, decreasing the risk to startups and companies like Google of patents ending up in what Google feels are the wrong hands. And I thought it was very interesting to see that one of the requirements of the program that Google announced with the startups was that they would have to pledge that they would never use the patents offensively, in terms of taking the patents and suing a competitor or parking them in some non-practicing entity to go after companies. So Google is really trying to impact the patent ecosystem. I think we're going to continue to see other initiatives like this. Some of them are done for public relations effect. Some of them may have an impact on a small scale. But in general, I think the most important thing is, just like Google is a giant in search, Google is also a giant in the patent landscape right now. That's it for this week's Markman Minute. My name is Gaston from Markman Advisors. You could check out all our content at mimesislaw.com under the Intellectual Property tab, where you can see our Markman Minutes, where we take a look at patent litigation events of interest to investors, as well as our prior Markman Notes and Minutes on similar topics. You could also check out Mimesis Law's other great content. And until next time, see you later. Was it? There's a lot to say, though. You could break it up in two parts.
I probably could. And it was great. Like, there's all these benchmarks in there. And also...